Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that I hope is close to many of our hearts, the spirit of giving and the joy of service. I'm incredibly excited to have Meg George with us, a mom, writer, speaker, and a beacon in the world of impactful philanthropy. Meg's journey is as unique as it is inspiring. We'll explore her path to becoming a guiding light in philanthropy alongside her husband, Phil, who co-founded George Philanthropy Group. In today's episode, we'll explore Meg's passion for educating future philanthropists, her experiences as a mom, nurturing good humans, and her advocacy work in food allergy awareness. We'll also delve into her debut children's book, What's Philanthropy to Philomena, a charming and insightful tool for introducing the concept of generosity to young minds. But what makes truly remarkable the journey that Meg has taken is her commitment to showing families how they can make a meaningful impact together. Whether you're a seasoned giver or just starting to think about how to instill a sense of service in your children, Meg's insights will surely resonate and inspire. So grab your favorite spot, maybe a notebook for those nuggets of wisdom, and let's welcome Meg George to our show. And let's discover together how we can all make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. So let's get started. Welcome, Meg.
Thanks, Carol. I'm excited to be here.
Same here. So why don't you share with us your current focus at George Philanthropy Group and what a typical day looks like for you?
I'm a consultant. I think that word has gotten thrown around so much that people don't even know what it means anymore, but I advise nonprofit organizations as well as families on impactful philanthropy. So what does that mean? Any of us who visit a local museum, send our children to a private school, maybe have a university alma mater, all of these institutions rely on the generosity of community members to do what they can do and to offer services to students and community members and any kind of population that they're serving. So I advise them on how to be really strategic about raising the most amount of money that they can. That's typically through something called a campaign, and a campaign has oftentimes a big monetary goal, and the organization has a lot of work to do to achieve this goal, but at the end of it, something very specific will have been funded. And my husband and I are specialists in how to create the architecture for that campaign and really train people on how to go out and solicit gifts of support. When it comes to families, it's kind of hard to give your money away, which I know sounds silly, but there are so many nonprofits, some of them competing with one another, duplicated services, or so many of a similar thing in the same smaller community. So it can be a little overwhelming if you're a family that maybe has something like a foundation set up already to know where to give it and how much to give and how to choose. So I'm of the mindset that choosing just a couple of places to support a year with the biggest possible gift that you can is the most impactful. And I guide families on how to be selective and strategic, but keep giving very meaningful.
And so what inspired you to write What's Philanthropy to Philomena, and what impact do you hope it will have on young readers?
This is a children's book that doesn't have a very specific age group that it targets, because the reality is that most kids don't know the word philanthropy. We're not introduced to this word or concept until we're older. And I realized through being a parent myself and being around so many philanthropic families that people aren't really sure how to engage their kids in acts of generosity. So when we were sitting at home an awful lot during COVID, I thought it would be kind of fun to write something that might inspire kids to grow up and become philanthropists, because, hey, if they believe that that's what they are as children, that is what they will become. But I also thought The goal of this book is twofold, because I want kids to learn how to be generous and feel very empowered and confident by it, especially to use the word philanthropy, which is a bit of a mouthful. I also want parents and teachers and caregivers to feel confident using that word too, because I can speak for myself in saying that was not a household word or even really idea growing up for me. So it's nice to use a children's book as a way of saying to families, like, let's even the playing field a little bit now.
And one thing about that, where you talked about people being uncomfortable with the idea of philanthropy and seeing themselves as philanthropists, many times it may be because people feel they have nothing to give. We all have something to give. And
Yeah.
so, and I think planting that seed, even with children, because it may be some time before they grow up, they go to college, they get a job, and have real money of their own, say, for example. But you don't want to wait until then for them to understand that you ought to be giving and helping others, even with what you may feel is limited. So I think that it's great to instill that spirit in children when they're younger.
I think so. And it's funny because I've read the book a lot at schools,
Mhm.
and I've read it to all different kinds of socioeconomic populations. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida, which happens to have a ginormous discrepancy in wealth.
Right.
And the school systems are really on two ends of the spectrum between some of these high-end private schools and some of the public schools that are inland, even a mile or two away.
Mhm.
And I thought when I was driving to a less fortunate school, what am I going to say? It was so easy with the children of those who can be philanthropic with gifts of money to
Mhm.
talk about how lucky we are. But when it comes to being on the receiving end of philanthropy, I actually found that the conversation was just as natural and even more meaningful because these kids were so open to understanding how other people are making the world a better place, how they might be recipients, and how they don't have to have any money to be philanthropic. Cleaning up the beach, throwing away litter, and still donating things that you're not using at your house anymore. These are all acts of generosity that I want kids to feel good about. And so I've had this own test of myself and my understanding of philanthropy at the deepest level by interfacing with the most vulnerable populations. And, no one is more honest than kids are. So that's been really fascinating.
We'll be right back after this. If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than Pro Picks by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With Pro Picks, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our social starter package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the social starter package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, there's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of Pro Picks by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. Pro Picks by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPicksbyP411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen. We're back with the Parenting 411. And I can see where it's also useful to have as well for students of means, say, just to understand that what you have isn't all for you to enjoy. I mean, you certainly should enjoy
Yeah,
and be thankful for what you have, but that sharing and that concern and that recognition that not everybody lives like you, I think it can really
exactly.
be pretty special. Now, I know you also have another branch of work that you do, and that's advocacy for food allergy awareness. Talk about that and how your personal experiences might have sparked that interest.
So I am a mother of a child with severe food allergies, and
Mm,
I didn't know this until my child was 3.5 years old. So we were really fortunate to have avoided somehow the tree nuts that could send my daughter Amira into anaphylaxis. But I started to pay attention to food allergies when we moved to West Palm Beach because there's a nonprofit here called Red Sneakers for Oakley. And I noticed these little red sneakers around town and at schools. So I asked someone about what it all meant. And they told me a really heartbreaking story about this boy,
mm,
Oakley, who lost his life because of ingesting nuts with a nut allergy. And his parents are incredibly devoted to ensuring that this won't happen to other kids. And part of their education is around the use of epinephrine. And a lot of us would refer to that as an EpiPen.
mhm,
That's something that they didn't know they should use when their son Oakley had accidentally eaten a nut. And of course, they wish that they had, but they've really spent their life now making sure that people know that and know how to
mhm,
use it. So I was very intrigued by this. I learned a lot about food allergies from reading their website and social media before I was even faced with any personal circumstances.
mhm,
And it was only a few weeks later that we were out and about in downtown West Palm Beach at an event for the holidays when my daughter ate cashew milk ice cream and went into anaphylaxis. And I knew what was happening because I had just read Oakley's story. So, this image of this beautiful boy and his devastating story is just flashing through my mind. I was screaming for help, and a doctor with an EpiPen Junior, which is designed specifically for kids, approached us and said, I'm a physician. I have this EpiPen. Would you like me to administer it? So, of course, we screamed yes, called 911, got an ambulance, and everything has been fine. This has happened one other time since, unfortunately, to my daughter with a different food. We knew what to do. We could do it ourselves at that point, right from home. But this sort of unlocked something in me that has felt really passionate and fierce almost about advocating for food allergy awareness. Because if I didn't know this, then a lot of people don't know this. And there's bullying and
mm.
challenging circumstances every single day for
Wow.
kids who are living with food allergies. And they don't really get to live a normal life. That's just the reality, is that they sit at separate tables, they have to read every label. My daughter can't eat the birthday cake at a birthday party or, trick or treat and just pop something in her mouth while she's walking around on Halloween. Her whole life is really centered around staying alive from food. So I wrote this article for the Today Show and one for Business Insider about, first, what happened to us, but second, what it's like to live with the constant anxiety of worrying about your child and what they eat every single day. And I can't tell you, Carol, how many people have reached out with similar stories, notes of gratitude, suggestions on treatments that they pursued, and the community, if you will, of food allergy advocates is really strong and loving and welcoming. So it's like we don't want to be in each other's company. No one wants to be in the club, but if you are, there are a lot of resources. And as a philanthropy specialist
Mhm.
and a food allergy advocate, I find myself right now at an interesting crossroads of questioning what kind of funding the food allergy world needs around research and legislation for epinephrine to not be so expensive, and
Mhm.
education. So every teacher and nurse in America knows how to use it. The list kind of goes on. So I'm excited to get activated a little bit more in this space now.
Wow. Well, I can imagine you're going to accomplish that given what you've done in the space of philanthropy. And I have to tell you, I'm in the club too. I have a tree nut allergy as well. And I probably was about 3 years old too when we discovered it because my family, they were very much nut eaters, both parents. And so I was sitting there too. So it took probably, I probably went to the hospital 2 times before we figured it out. And so I didn't have an epi. Well, there was no EpiPen back then, but I just couldn't have it. I couldn't have it. And the interesting thing is, I mean, that's the difference in a generation. I'm not sure what happened, but I was the only one. Like there was nobody else allergic
Yeah,
in my school. Nobody else was allergic to nuts,
right.
and I only had one cousin, and I didn't even know she was allergic to nuts until we were, a little older, maybe late teens or 20s. So it was really, I was unusual. I was
That is
unusual.
really, you bring up a fascinating point that I reflect on a lot because it's opened my eyes to how food is either poison or medicine. Like
Hmm.
now I believe that. Does it stop me from buying my kids a cheese pizza on the way home when I don't want to cook? No. Like we
Right.
still live a pretty typical kind of American life with our
Hmm.
diet. But
Hmm.
I'm paying so much more attention now to what I buy, even nuts aside, because I'm starting to read so much more research about the things that are added to their food and like what they activate in our bodies and our immune response. And I'm
Hmm.
a big believer now that the American food industry needs to be seriously disrupted and that it's probably going to take some passionate moms to do that. And I'm signing up.
Well, that's good. That would be great to see because I know a lot of people really do suffer with that. So
Yeah.
now I want to go back a little bit. I know you earned a French degree, but took a totally different career path. Can you share your journey with us?
I grew up in upstate New York and
Mhm.
I went to a small liberal arts college in Syracuse. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I had thought I would go to pharmacy school. I was always seeking growing up like a really stable job with a stable income and know my hours. I just always thought I want things to feel really like safe for my life.
Mhm.
And it felt like taking a 180 to get a French degree because I knew I wouldn't be a teacher. I wasn't really sure what I would do with it. But I'm finding now, as every year passes, that things are sort of mapped out for us, I think, a bit. So
Mhm.
staying at my alma mater after graduation to work in their fundraising office gave me the
Oh.
chance to be exposed to the rest of the country. So when I earned my French degree, I was able to live in Europe for 6 months and travel around. And that was an amazing experience. I had maybe been on a plane one time before that to go to
Mhm.
Florida, and that really changed my life. But just as significantly as that, my life was changed when I was put on a plane to go solicit alums for gifts of support in New York City and Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. Like these are places I really hadn't spent time before.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot about the way that the world works and different businesses and how people think and act and communicate. And I loved it. So I decided that I would stick with this career because I felt like I was good at it, but I also felt like it was really challenging and I wanted to be challenged. I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to make a good living and feel like I could meet people and learn about them. So, philanthropy is not really something people go to school for, unfortunately. I hope that that will change in my lifetime. You
Mhm.
kind of fall into it,
Right.
but it is a business, and I would love to encourage more business minded, men and women of any age to explore it as a field, as a career, because it is one where you can uh, like I said, be challenged and learn about people, but you can grow all of the time and things like it's almost like the plane's being built as we're flying it. It's such a
Hmm.
toddler as a career that you're not earning a degree in it, but there's
Right.
so many creative ways to be successful in it. And I really enjoy that. So once I finished my stint at my alma mater fundraising, I went on to do more of the same in a healthcare system for
Hmm.
women and children's services. And I think that that's the first time that I had real compassion in my life, like deep empathy for people whose children are in a NICU, for women who are leaving a hospital without their baby.
Hmm.
And that flipped a switch in me around my devotion to this field. I
Hmm.
could see how securing gifts actually does make the world better,
Hmm.
positively affects people's lives. And my husband was doing the same. And we decided to leave our jobs and start our firm so that we could advise and help as many organizations at once as we could. And we've done just that. So this is our 9th year with our firm, and we really enjoy what we do.
That's wonderful. And I have seen the positive effects of philanthropy, but also people like you who help organizations do this through church,
Mhm.
also through the schools that I've attended, and my son's schools as well.
Yeah.
So it really is special, and it really, when people come together, like even during the campaign, just coming together for a common purpose, wanting to see change in whatever organization or community that you find yourself in, can really be fulfilling for the people that are involved too, right? To know
Yeah.
that they contributed to something, making something better or making
Yeah.
something easier, whether for themselves or for other people.
Definitely. Yeah.
So now I know that you've worked on global campaigns. Is there like a particularly memorable project that really felt fulfilling once you helped them achieve their goal?
There's a project, so many projects. We get to know people so deeply, they
Hmm.
become our colleagues. We're a firm of 5 people, 6 people sometimes, but the clients that we work with, we just get so entrenched and ingrained in what they do. And there is a technically private school here in West Palm Beach, but 100% of the student body lives under the poverty line. And last night we went to an event that celebrated this organization. They're called the Center for Creative Education. And I think that being a part of education philanthropy has shown me that when kids are given the chance, really at a young age,
Hmm.
to explore and learn and feel loved. It's like kind of simple, actually, what kids need when they're really little. It
Hmm.
changes the whole trajectory of their lives. And the CEO of this organization was saying last night, we can educate these kids at a private school for about $15,000 a year, which is pretty inexpensive because you can look at some of the price tags for annual tuition at other noteworthy schools and see $44,000 plus
Easily.
gifts to their annual
Yes.
fund. So I think they're doing a lot with a little, first of all. Some of these, no one really pays all that. They have to pay something to send their children there, but a lot of these families pay $50 and they pay it on a plan over 10 months for $5 a month. So that's the level of financial ability that we're talking about.
Hmm.
And they could easily send their kids to public school on a bus for free, but
Sure.
they drive them, which is really expensive because we know how much gas is and we know how much it costs to have a car. And they drive them to school and they pay the $5 or $10 every month, whatever they can afford, basically, to send their kids to this school because the experience changes their kids' lives completely and really forever. Like they're so loved there. They're actually learning to read on grade level. They're challenged with math. They're taught how to deal with arguments and conflict resolution in a pretty calm and safe setting. And they don't always have that at home. So I applaud the parents for
Mhm.
being self-aware and loving and sending their kids there. And I applaud these kids for showing up every day and being in a situation that is hard because it's not home and it's not where all the kids from their neighborhood go.
Right.
And I really applaud everyone who works at this school and all the donors who support it, because every class who graduates from this school will go on to do considerably more remarkable things than they like ever had the chance from what they were born into, you know? So
Mhm.
that's a project I really love to work on.
And I like that too. I'm very interested in that school. Uh, and I like it because it impacts children, which of course is my space ultimately, to really enrich the lives of children by supporting their parents. But how have you seen the world of philanthropy evolve over the years, especially in terms of family involvement and getting children involved in philanthropy?
There's conflicting data right now, but we're really lucky in our industry that there's a lot of people who do devote their lives to research and data about giving, and I love to read all of that. I think it informs the work that I do.
Right.
But over the last like 15 or 20 years, we've gone away from seeing more people give and really complete projects together. Like I think about my grandparents, they pretty much said yes to donating to any place that asked them if they could afford it. My generation does not do that. So much the numbers are kind of steady in America. So about $500 billion is given away was given
Mhm.
away in 2022. That's the most recent data we have. And like 65% of that came from people. And that's always the case. About 70% usually every year of the money that's given away comes from individuals and families. And then right after that, it comes from foundations. So a
Mhm.
lot of us think about foundations as places where maybe you'd write a grant and solicit written support. But families are starting to form their own foundations now. And that's
Mhm.
one of the biggest changes, Carol, is this sense of pride within families about being philanthropic. It's like a tool for a legacy.
Mhm.
It wasn't really like that before. So you have so many fewer people actually giving away, being charitable, giving money
Right.
away and being charitable, but the dollars are steady because they're giving bigger gifts. It's a little scary, you know, the stats are kind of sobering that it
Mhm.
always says bigger gifts from fewer people, or indicating such a heavy reliance that we have on the 1% in America. And it's true. Like even a
Mhm.
campaign I work on, 15 families might make up 95% of the whole campaign funding. I think we're going to see a shift. I think that kids are getting more interested in how to be impactful.
That's
The
good.
list came out today from the Chronicle of Philanthropy on the top 50 donors in our country. And I think it said that 3 or 4 of them were under the age of 40. So imagine that 50 people in the whole United States of America that are the biggest donors, moving like over $10 billion a year. And some of these people are in their 30s. So it's pretty remarkable to see that they're like, don't invite me to a golf tournament. I don't want to do all that. I want real, deep rooted social change, environmental change. I want to be a change agent in this world, this country, my community. I'm going to ask tough questions, and I don't want you sending me all these tchotchkes and wasting your time on me. I want to like make this world a better place. I don't really care about the tax implications. So I think we're about to see some refreshing storylines in mainstream media about philanthropy.
We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more.
An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's Parent and Purpose Summit 2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
So you talk about the fact that some of the younger generations don't have that mindset about philanthropy or about giving, even just writing a simple check to some local organization. They don't have that mindset. How does that present challenges for you, or is that a challenge? And what other kinds of challenges have you faced in your work? And how do you do that? How do you get people to realize that they do have something to give and that someone out there could really use what they have?
I've kind of given up on thinking that part of my role is convincing anyone of this, because the
Okay.
reality is that being charitable means that you have to give away some of your money. That's money you would have had for yourself. So I think it's amazing when families are generous and they say, nope, take my $1,000 for the Center for Creative Education. I'd rather help feed those kids lunch. It's probably the only meal they're having today, then buy my kids another thing, right? And that's me and my husband's mentality, is like, what we can do, we're going to try to always do. We want our kids to know it. We want them to do it as well. But disposable income, so this extra money that we have to spend on any given year, is a really great marker of how philanthropic we'll feel like comfortable being and how the market is doing. Even if we don't have our money in the market, is also a pretty good indicator of how comfortable we feel giving our money away. So disposable income has been so pinched by inflation, and the market, the conversation about the market has felt so shaky for a period of time that middle class Americans who are really affected by inflation just don't want to have the conversation right now about being charitable. And middle class Americans who aren't even really affected financially by the market are just nervous about the idea of a really unstable economic period in our country, and they don't want to be philanthropic. So to give bigger gifts, that's relative, by the way. A big gift for some families might be $500, and for others that might be 5 million. You have to have this like emotional connection, but also an intellectual one. So you might be moved by an organization I talk about, but you also want to know what their budget looks like and how much they raise a year and how they spend it,
Mm-hmm.
how sustainable they're going to be. So there's a lot of things that make it fair to ask good questions, but what's challenging for me is that I can't really convince people. And at the same time, it's not a real challenge for me, because the campaigns I'm working on might have a $25 million goal or a $100 million goal. And I can help nonprofits identify the 25 families who we should engage. And I can almost sort of facilitate conversations that align someone's philanthropic interests and goals with what the organization really needs and wants to do. So I feel like a little bit of a conduit in that way. And so far, it just doesn't really affect my work so much that we went from 2/3 of households being charitable to half of households being charitable. I don't like it. I think it is going to change, because I think the 35-year-old sort of age group parents now are like, hey, how do we make the world better? And their kids are hearing that. But I think for a period of time, we're going to see young people give more of their time or their things than their money. So it's just interesting to me.
Hmm. So, in your experience, what are some effective ways parents could introduce the concept of giving and service to their children?
Books are obviously a great tool. I personally love that my kids do not want to tell me about their day after school or even so much at dinner as they do like 5 minutes before it's time for them to fall asleep. So having a book time at bedtime, if your family's anything like mine, does open up the door for new conversations. And it's part of why I wrote my book, because I couldn't find any children's books with philanthropy in the title. And I also think that we're so busy, we're like overscheduled, that if you get something on the calendar, it's happening and it's done. And we found this nonprofit that's a house for families who are waiting for medical services for their kids, like a surgery or something.
Mhm.
It's physical, so it wasn't there's no contagious illnesses, for example, being housed in the facility, but it is a house and they love to feed them one warm meal a day, which is such a nice and I think welcoming concept. So we signed up, my family and I did, to make them dinner one night. And the truth is that my husband pretty much did all the work, but he gave my kids jobs with the bread or rolling up the different things. And when we got there and my kids saw other kids their age in wheelchairs, physical deformities, like it really exposed them to need and they enjoyed it so deeply. Like not only could you tell that they felt really good, they were proud to do it, but they sat around the table with the kids and were just like, hey, these are kids too. Like they want to be outside playing soccer too. And they're, kind of trapped in this wheelchair and waiting for surgery. So anything from like our family is getting, one of those little clippers to clean the beach and some thick gloves, and we're going on Saturday at 9 a.m. It's on the calendar, to doing a Google search of nonprofits who can use volunteers, calling 3, and then deciding as a family where to give. I think just doing something with your kids, even if it's once a year, gets them thinking more when you drive by need, like, oh, hey, I've been exposed to this. I'm a little bit aware of it.
Mhm. Mhm. I like that. I like all of that. What kinds of future projects do you have that you're really excited about, both in your consultancy with philanthropy as well as uh, your personal advocacy work? Although I think you shared a good bit about that, about the food allergy awareness. But tell us what you're excited about coming up.
I want to make more space for writing for adults, and that's something I'm excited about. I like writing a lot, and it was almost hard to write a children's book because the editor wanted to remove half the sentences I proposed, because I just love words and writing, and I can't say enough, even though a children's book can't be 50 pages or have 7 sentences per page. That was a real lesson for me. So I've started to write a book for adults. It's just like funny and interesting essays from my life as someone who grew up in a big Irish Catholic family in upstate New York, to navigating working with my husband and having a business together, to motherhood and navigating things like food allergies. So I hope that that's something that I'll see through to the end. I also am not exactly sure what the world has planned for me, what the universe has lined up for me around um, other projects, especially in the food allergy space. But I know it's something, like when you can feel pulled towards something, so you just keep kind of scratching the surface to see what's there. I'm sort of at that period right now. And then I've just started to focus so much more on speaking engagements. So I'm going to a few conferences this spring, which I'm very excited about, to kind of jazz people up about philanthropy and how we can change the world, and offer them stats and advice and recommendations. And I'd love to continue to do more of that and represent our firm in that way.
Awesome. Uh, Tell us how we can follow your work, whether it's on social media or your website.
Thanks for asking. megtgeorge.com or georgephilanthropy.com. Our social medias are hooked up to both of those accounts. I try to remember to post. I really do like sharing about my life, but my book is also available right on my site and on Amazon and Barnes and Noble online. And I hope that if you live in a city in Florida or New York, maybe we can see each other sometime soon if I'm doing a book signing or an event, and then throughout the rest of the country in the next calendar year, which is which is on my mind to start planning. So it'd be great to see anyone in person, and please do shoot me a note if you listen, because I really love connecting with other parents.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about philanthropy and just the notion of giving and serving and how we can really start to plant those seeds in our children's hearts very young. And then also, I'm sure there's some folks out there that do have to deal with food allergies, whether as parents or for their children, and it can certainly be challenging to keep our kids safe. So I'm glad that you were able to share a bit about that. And I hope people will reach out and people will follow you so that they can learn more about what you have ahead there. And I just hope that this conversation sparked some ideas for our listeners. I hope that you got some good ideas about how you can get started, because as we talked about in the beginning, just the idea, the word can sound overwhelming, intimidating, philanthropy. And it's very easy to think that you don't have anything to give, but you would be surprised at how much other people need. And and something that you take for granted might very well be quite valuable and life-changing for others in your community. So I hope that this discussion kind of will spark you to look, even if you're starting with Google, as Meg said. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, and particularly this episode. You can also head on over to our YouTube channel where we will have the video of this discussion as well. If you want to check back in, maybe you came in halfway and you want to catch the whole conversation, you can catch it over there in addition to all of your favorite podcast platforms. And I appreciate you listening. Continue to follow the Parenting 411 on all of your social media platforms. We would love to have you in the community. We've got some exciting things coming up. And as always, remember, it's never too late to be the parent that you want to be. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.